The Ural Mountains are beautiful, silent, and merciless. A wilderness that tests the courage of even the most seasoned adventurers. In February of 1959, 9 hikers set out on what should have been a simple trek across these snow-clad peaks. Eager for adventure, unaware that the mountains were about to claim them in a way that would puzzle the world for decades. Their names: Igor, Yuri, Ludmila, Zenaida, and others would be etched into a story of chilling mystery, where every clue seemed stranger than the last. The snow was thick, the winds sharp, and the nights endless. Somewhere in that frozen expanse, something went horribly wrong. Their tent was found sliced open from the inside, their bodies scattered across the icy terrain, injuries defying reason. What force could have driven them to abandon their shelter in the dead of night, half-dressed, into temperatures so cruel it could not survive? Tonight, we dive into the chilling mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. In the heart of the Ural Mountains, the group of 9 hikers, students and adventurers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, began their expedition with excitement, unaware of the storm that awaited them. Their goal was Otorten, a modest peak, but the path was treacherous, cloaked in snow and shadow. The days were short, the sun barely rising before retreating below the horizon, leaving an endless stretch of gray. They laughed, joked, and documented their journey with cameras, capturing what seemed like the perfect adventure. Yet, the deeper they traveled into the wilderness, the more oppressive the mountains became. The wind howled like a living creature, brushing icy fingers across their faces. Snow piled around them, hiding crevices, camouflaging dangers that could swallow a man whole. Even the most confident among them felt a quiet unease, the kind that creeps in when the silence is absolute and the world seems to have disappeared behind a wall of white. Night after night, they set up camp in makeshift shelters, never knowing what the Ural expanse might demand of them. Something intangible hovered in the air, a warning, perhaps, or a promise of the unknown. Their camaraderie masked a creeping tension, a sense that the mountains themselves were watching, patient and unyielding. No one could have predicted what that night would demand, the sudden terror that would drive them from the safety of their tent into a frozen abyss, leaving behind questions that would baffle the world. February 1st arrived with bitter winds and relentless snow. The hikers pitched their tent on the slope of Kalatsiako, unaware that the ground beneath them might be a silent witness to impeding horror. They retired for the night, faces flushed from exertion, hoping for rest. Outside, the mountain's frozen breath swept across the land, whispering secrets only the snow could carry. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, a terrifying force, or perhaps sheer instinct, compelled them to flee. The tent was discovered later, cut from the inside, jagged slashes marring the fabric. Their belongings, shoes, and outer clothing were left behind. Why would 9 experienced hikers abandon their shelter in the heart of a Siberian winter? The answer remains elusive, but the scene was the first sign that logic could not explain. The snow preserved their desperate flight, footprints vanishing into a world of white. The mountains bore witness to something unnatural, some force or terror that drove them into the night, exposing them to frostbite, injuries, and death. Yet, nothing in the records suggests a predator. There were no tracks of other humans, no signs of struggle beyond the tent itself, just the cold, the snow, and an overwhelming, incomprehensible fear. By dawn, the mountains had swallowed their screams, leaving only silence and mystery behind. The Ural wilderness had become both grave and enigma, and the world would only slowly begin to understand the chilling events that unfolded that night. When search teams arrived weeks later, the first signs of the disaster appeared, fragmentary and unsettling. The tent was shredded, its occupants gone, leaving a puzzle of footprints trailing into the snow. The initial bodies were discovered near the tree line, stripped of clothing, some with inexplicable injuries. Their faces were frozen in expressions of terror, their hands reaching as if to grasp something unseen. It was only the beginning. Over the following days, the bodies of all 9 hikers were found, scattered across miles of frozen wilderness. Some had fractured skulls and chest injuries so severe they resembled car crashes. Yet there were no external wounds consistent with such force. Others had succumbed to hypothermia, their clothing torn, their bodies partially buried in snow. One woman's tongue was missing. Several had high levels of radiation detected on their clothing. The scene defied explanation. Nothing in the mountains, no animal, no accident, no ordinary human intervention could account for the horror that had befallen them. Searchers were left with a tableau that seemed torn from a nightmare. Evidence of panic, confusion, and violence mingled with an almost ritualistic precision. Each clue deepened the mystery. Why had the hikers abandoned the tent? What caused the fractures in some but left others untouched? And what invisible hand drove them into the freezing night, alone and terrified, leaving only the silent snow as witness? The Dyatlov Pass has claimed them, yet it whispered a question that would haunt generations. What truly happened on that frozen slope? The Dyatlov Pass Incident has inspired theories that range from natural disaster to the outright supernatural. Some experts suggest an avalanche forced the hikers into a panic, compelling them to slice open their tent and flee into the cold. But forensic analysis of the injuries challenges this explanation. The fractures were not consistent with snow sliding downhill. Others propose secret military tests, possibly with radiation or experimental weapons as the cause. The presence of radioactive traces on the clothing and the lack of clear evidence for a natural predator lend some credence to this notion. UFO enthusiasts argue that extraterrestrial involvement is plausible, citing unusual light sightings reported by locals at the time. Then there are the more paranormal interpretations. Some claim the hikers encountered a Yeti, a malevolent mountain spirit, or an unknown entity that drove them into irrational terror. Theories proliferate because the evidence resists certainty. Every hypothesis seems to explain part of the mystery, but leaves crucial questions unanswered. Perhaps the simplest answer is the most terrifying. The mountains themselves became a force beyond comprehension. An invisible, omnipresent terror, striking without pattern or reason, could have driven these 9 young adventurers to their deaths. Their panic, their injuries, their flight into the cold, all point to something that cannot be fully rationalized. A reminder that nature, or something beyond it, can impose horror without warning. The world may never know the truth, and maybe it's better that way. For some mysteries are so chilling that understanding them fully would strip the warmth from the living and leave only ice and fear. Decades have passed, yet the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to haunt those who study it. The mountains remain silent, indifferent, yet the memory of that frozen night lingers like a shadow over the Ural wilderness. Families grieve, historians debate, and conspiracy theorists endlessly dissect the evidence. Every new investigation uncovers more questions than answers. Were the hikers victims of natural forces, human experimentation, or something that defies earthly understanding? Each theory scratches the surface of a horror too complex for simple explanation. The tent, the injuries, the scattered bodies, they are pieces of a puzzle with corners missing. An enigma frozen in snow. The story has become more than history. It is a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder of the unknown that lies beyond human perception. Those who wander into the wilderness carry a whispered warning. The mountains are patient, and some secrets are meant to remain untouched. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is a frozen riddle, one that inspires fascination, dread, and a profound respect for forces beyond comprehension. It reminds us that sometimes survival is not enough, and that terror can strike in silence, without explanation, and without mercy. Even now, when the wind howls across Koletsieko, some swear they hear whispers in the snow, the echoes of 9 lives snatched too soon, and a warning that the unknown is never far from the edge of human understanding. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of history's most haunting mysteries. 9 hikers vanished into the snow. And though their bodies were eventually found, the questions surrounding their deaths remain unsolved. Every theory, from avalanches to secret military tests, from Yeti encounters to extraterrestrial interference, explains some fragments, but the truth continues to evade us. Walking through their journey, we've glimpsed the terror of the unknown, felt the crushing isolation of the Ural wilderness, and pondered the chilling circumstances that drove these young adventurers to their final moments. Their story is a reminder that nature, or perhaps something beyond it, can wield a power both invisible and irresistible. If this tale of frozen horror sent a shiver down your spine, share it with those brave enough to face the unknown. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales that blur the line between reality and nightmare. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.